Yeah, hello everyone. Um, how's the afternoon slash midday? Yeah, I hope everything's working. Yeah, this is a little bit of a different lecture I'm doing. Usually, I see something that students are doing that that tilts me, and then I complain about it for an hour and 15 minutes, and until you stop doing it. Or something I do also. It depends. Um, but this time I wanted to talk a little bit about a professional whose games I've been looking at recently that I think has influenced my Go a lot, and there's a lot of really interesting things about his Go. So, uh, oh, Auntie's in the chat, very hype. Thank you. Hello, Garden, and also Victor was there earlier. Um, You're saying we have failed to tilt you. No, no, I'm saying that I have been. I'm saying that the insight of a specific professional has been more interesting to me than the level of tilt you've produced. Don't worry, you don't feel to tilt me, Siku. Um, Already had a picnic in a nearby park. Nice. I haven't had lunch yet. I'll have lunch after this probably. So, let's get started, I guess. So I made a little bit of a slide with some basic information about the professional in question. This is Fujisawa Shuko, also known as Fujisawa Hideyuki. I think he preferred to be called Hideyuki, but Shuko kind of just stuck. People liked calling him Shuko. He is a relatively older player. I mean, he's dead now, unfortunately. He was really, really strong, I'm going to say, from the year 1960-ish to around maybe the 1990s. He was a top player for a very long time, and there's a couple of things I like about him. Hello there, Tateson. So, apart from his goal, which I really, that's the subject of this lecture. I wanted to give a bit of background. So, he turned professional very young, but he didn't become a top professional for a little bit until the early 60s. You can see he became nine dan professional 23 years after turning pro, so he was already in his 30s, and that's also when he won his first title. He won, I think he won the Meijin a couple of times. He won he won the notoriously he won the Kisei 6 times in a row when he was in his 50s. That was pretty good. Hedo Badukbam. He meant it as Hideyuki, but people started reading it as Shuko sarcastically because Shu is in many classic strong players' names. Oh, I see. That makes some sense. I mean, he did become really strong later in his career. So he's also kind of famous for being the oldest player to ever defend a title. So he won, I think it was the Oza? I think it was the Oza when he was like 66, already in the 90s, and then defended it the year afterwards. So one of the 7 major titles at that age is no joke. So he was a very strong player for years and years and years. So that's one of the things to be like. I actually was thinking of showing a game he had a really nice game against Kato Masao, which they played in like 1988 when Shuko was already in his 60s. But that didn't make it to the list. There's other games I wanted to show, but there's some great games of his later in his career as well, much later. Um, and he's also reputed as a teacher. So he's listed as a teacher for players like I think Murakawa Daisuke and Takao Shinji. Some Go history in the lectures I like this. Well, I just wanted to give a bit of background, right? I'm talking about a player. I might as well talk a little bit about him. So I did some research, and he's credited as a teacher for a lot of players. He's also kind of well known for uh, promoting Go outside of Japan, which I think is quite a good thing. So he went to China to teach. He had several Chinese students, and I think also some Korean professionals he's credited with teaching. So also a teacher. So that's good. And yeah, unfortunately, he died in 2009. It happens. There's a documentary on YouTube about him, like a 20-minute piece that the NHK did on him. You can probably find it, and it talks about about his philosophy and etc. Yeah. There's a fun YouTube video of his teaching where he's basically bashing Takashi Shinji and other top players of the early 2000s, and everyone just listens in awkward silence. Yeah. I mean, the thing, what I heard about his teaching, I have to say, is not necessarily in alignment with how I would teach. Let's put it that way. Like, I kind of like a positive reinforcement rather than negative. But yeah, I guess it's an older style of teaching. Yeah, different cultures though. Yeah. I mean, in the documentary, they talk about how good he is as a teacher, and like how it was clear how passionate he was about his students improving, and etc. He does have a lot of very strong students, so yeah. But okay, that was a bit of background. People used to say that Fujisawa plays the best first 50 moves. I don't know. I've heard that characterization of him. I wouldn't necessarily say so. In his teaching, he liked to praise original moves. Well, yeah, he had a very idiosyncratic style of playing. He hated people just repeating popular Joseki without thinking. Oh man, he wouldn't have liked my Chinese school. Oh man, he wouldn't have. Yeah. You probably mostly teach amateurs. If you bash us too hard, we might quit. Yeah, with professionals, they won't quit, probably. So you can bash them, but, hitting their confidence and stuff is also not good. But yeah, I'd say that the thing that defines Shuko's play, many people see him as a very thick player, and that's not an unreasonable characterization. What I like about his play, and we're going to talk about his games in a moment, is that there's a decided appreciation for strong shapes. So let's say in amateur Go, people focus on points a lot, especially when you're a beginner. And actually, I might wanna switch slides and go to here. So and talk about this. So like, I want to talk a little bit about why I think Shuko's games have been useful to me. So when you're a beginner, a real beginner, many people start trying to make points by doing stuff like this. They start trying to make points by doing stuff like this. They put stones on the first line, and they're like, I make 2 eyes, I make certain points. Because the purpose of making points, the purpose of playing Go, of winning a game of Go, what you do is you make points. And the issue is that it's hard to make points efficiently. Like, it's kind of a contentious issue. How do you best make points? And people gravitate towards making points in such a way that is, I'm gonna say, tangible, right? That you can see how the points are being made. And that's why when you're a beginner, you start... I was teaching a beginner very recently, and he was actually doing this type of stuff. And of course, when you get a little bit older in terms of Go knowledge, then that you change your attitude a bit, and you start finding more efficient ways of making points. Oh, hello there, Najee. You're repeating popular Joseki without thinking is a good way to save your clock time, though. Yeah, that's why I play Joseki, indeed. So... in Japanese pro games, you have at least 3 hours of main times. Yeah. I mean, in Shuko's games had like 8 hours of main time or so. Yeah. Although interestingly, at the same time, Shuko would say people use too much thinking time and they should play more quickly by instinct. Wow. But I'm okay. I'm not sure about we're starting to. I mean, by instinct, you play the Joseki, right? But yeah. Anyway, so. As people get stronger, we start learning about the concept of efficiency, and also about the concept of making points in the long term. Like, maybe this influence, right? Maybe a beginner would like a Sansan Joseki for black because black is making points. But, you know, in the long term, maybe this structure is actually better at making points than the corner structure. We don't know. And, you know, I think the stronger you get, the more it's usual to understand that what matters is the score at the end of the game, not the score on move 50 or on move 60 or even on move 150. So, you know, in Go you make points, but it kind of depends how you make them. And there's many different ways of doing so. And in my opinion, Shuko's games are valuable because they've taught me, or they've reinforced to me, that there's a particular way of making points that people underrate. And you know, just a second ago I mentioned, oh, Shuko is a bit of a thicker player, like very thick shapes, very strong shapes in his games, and that's probably a fair characterization. Some people think of him as a Moyo player, which I don't necessarily agree with. What I appreciate about his games, from what I've seen about them, is that he's always making strong shapes. And people don't like strong shapes if they're not making points. Like, people like moyos because you can see the area that is being made. But people don't necessarily like strong shapes that aren't leading anywhere. And what I enjoyed about Shuko's games is that very often he just makes strong shape, and, you know, eventually they turn into something. You're like, this is a strong shape, so what? And, you know, 100 moves later, he shows you so what. And I find that very interesting. And yeah, I picked some games that I thought were the most representative of that. And, you know, some of his more spectacular games. I also picked games against stronger players that, you know, you guys might know. So I picked Chochi-kun, Kato Masao. These are well known to some of you people. And I don't know. I think we might as well start with the games. Why not? The first game is probably the most standard of the games. The last three are like really spectacular, I suppose. So, this is a game between Chochi-kun, who was really young at the time, like really young. I think must have been in his 20s, and Shuko, who was, you know, 50 at this point, nearly 60, right? Oh, I've started to enjoy just playing strong more and more, as it's the hardest style to get terribly wrong. It's the hardest style to get terribly wrong. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. I hadn't considered it that way. Maybe. I always enjoyed playing with strong shapes, more than most players, I think. But hence why I think, you know, Shuko's games attract me. Now, this game is Chochi-kun and Shuko, like I said, it's nearly 60 at this point, and this is the 1983 Kisei title match. Shuko had at this point held the Kisei title 6 years in a row since its inception. So, you know, people were like wondering if anyone else could, you know, physically win the Kisei. 5.5 Komi, yes. And this title match was actually won by Chochi-kun. Shuko won the first 3 games mostly quite convincingly. Like, in my opinion, he won the games like super solidly. I looked at all the games in some detail. But then Chochi-kun won 4 games in a row. So, you know, that's how it goes. And that's how Shuko lost the title. This is one of the games Shuko won. It's game 2. And it features, in my opinion, it features Shuko doing to Chochi-kun what you would stereotypically think Chochi-kun does to other pro players. Hence why it's an interesting game. So let's go ahead. I saw this shape. Yes. So yesterday, Miko and Jeff were doing a review, and this shape came up. Something very, very similar to that, with this 2-space jump and another 2-space jump. Okay, and shoulder hit. I think these days the main move is to cut, but standing is fine. And white tenukis, which is fair. I think you push these many times. For, you know, the only main reason is that when black turns, you don't want this corner to run into trouble. Like, it's short on ice space, so you might have to play something like this exchange, which is not usually something you want to do. It's not fun. Or you can do it, just strengthens your opponent. So, you know, Shuko pushes a lot of times and then Tanukis, that's fair. And Black is already trying to build something off of this wall, and we'll see how White sort of deals with it. So yeah, 09 is a bit of a... I think it's an older style move. You'll see in a lot of these older games, they have a slightly different perception of how the game works to these days. I think now White would probably just do nothing and wait. But yeah, the cap is fine. That's a strange Chiku. Yeah. I mean, this, like I said, this isn't the stereotypical Chochi-kun game. Like, here, Chochi-kun gets Chochi-kuned. You know? Like, Black builds a framework, and the slide says Fujisawa's Black. Does it? Wait. Oh, I have it for the wrong... Oh my god. Okay, my bad. Actually, the thing is, the next game is game 2, and in that one, Shuko is Black. I'm showing 2 games from this match, so 1 second. That is a terrible... Okay. That should work. Thank you very much, Fanshaw. Also, hello, Fanshaw. So, Chochi-koned, yeah. So next game, Shuko will be Black. And Cho plays N8. Now 09 is more acceptable. 09, wait, was 09 not acceptable back then? I assumed it's a bit of an older move. Because I haven't seen that many old games. But, I mean, I don't think it's a bad move. It looks fine. But I would have assumed that in modern theory, you'd play in the corner. Oh, it'd be strange to see Chochi-kun play it. Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, Fujisawa Shuko could play 09, yes. Now, this is the first move that I think is very, very representative of how Shuko plays. And I don't think it's a good move. That's the thing. So the next move that White's going to play is, in my opinion, objectively incorrect. But it shows, it kind of shows how Shuko thinks, in my opinion. Like the type of thing that Shuko values. Which in many, many situations is very, very good. And, you know, I mean, he's a much better player than I am, of course. However, this move is objectively bad. Just fix the problem, huh? Well, just fix the problem is a very common idea for Shuko, I would say. White's next move was P9. Which is something else. So the idea is Black has a hole here, but I can't cut through. I'm gonna bump first, and then play P7. I wouldn't have guessed it without the hint. Yeah. So, what says me out? Yeah. Okay, so I was reviewing this game with a friend, right? And my theory for this was, well, imagine that this position was on the board, right? Which is a normal position. And let's say that White plays this. Black plays this, which is what Black played in the game anyway. And now we have this exchange on the board. Black A for White B. And this exchange cannot possibly be good for White. Like, Black's move is somewhat reasonable. Like, it's a stone that makes sense. Or, like, it's doing something. It's not inefficient relative to Black's other stones. And White's Nobi isn't efficient. It's just, I don't think this move should exist. So, you know, when I looked at this theory, I figured that this cannot really be objectively good for White. It's not super bad, but I don't think it's good. But that's what White did. So I'm sure I've seen this game before. Though a long time ago. I don't see the problem. I'd play that. So you'll see this type of Nobi. My heart is bleeding. You'll see this type of Nobi a lot in Shuko's games. And something that I think kind of happens is that, let's say, in modern pro games, efficiency is the name of the game. Like, people fight over efficiency all the time. Like, you know, I always talk about this, about how when in pro games, when someone peeps, the peep never ever gets answered. It's like, or not ever, but it gets answered less than less than it should be, let's say. And the reason is that professionals are always trying to prove that their stones are efficient. Why is it so bad? Okay, the reason it's so bad is that you don't nobi like this. Like, you don't... In Go, it's not considered efficient to, when you have a stone, you play another one next to it with no context, right? Like this, you'd much rather jump or play a Keima or, play an extension rather than a nobi. So white would rather have stones further apart because then they're being more efficient. They're serving more versatile purposes. So this shape isn't good, let's say. It's not ideal, let's say. There's a context you can get cut. Yeah, there's no context whatsoever. I mean, this white move is much better than white playing here, for sure. But I still think it doesn't make much sense. Like, I'd much rather Tenuki than play 09 here as white. I would Q10, R10. Yeah. This is exactly what I would do as white. I was reviewing this game with a friend of mine who's like a strong 4-dan. And what I said was I would do this as white all day. All day. Definitely I would do this. So, I try to settle myself on the right side of the board, and, this exchange is just whatever. I mean, it's not whatever. A kind of helps the invasion more than B makes it worse. But, yeah, so you'll see, in my opinion, Shuko's games occasionally sacrifice efficiency. So sometimes you'll see just very powerful shapes that objectively aren't efficient, or not as efficient as they could be. But something I like about Shuko's games is that these shapes end up looking good somehow. Like, he understood, in my opinion, he understood very well what his shapes could do. So this kind of very solid shape, he would make it work very well. Even though I don't think it's good. I think many professionals really would dislike this because white stones are inefficient. Like, white stones are not as well placed as they could be, which is a very topical thing in professional games. Like, stone efficiency in pro games is more important than everything. Like, absolutely everything, I think. So that's what they're fighting about all the time. And, white isn't being too efficient here. Well, Shuko is usually efficient, but occasionally sacrificed it, which is interesting. Okay, let's keep going. I'd like to be confident enough to be able to play P9. Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason I don't like P9 isn't even a confidence thing. It's just, I mean, I don't know, like, this move looks nice. I actually like this for a while. I don't like Black B. I don't like Chochikun's move here. I mean, I don't want to criticize too strongly. These guys are much stronger than I am, but I wouldn't have played this as Black, and in my opinion, this attachment's a good punishment for that. But yeah. Okay, so oh wait, no. White jumped. And White's jump, I think, is okay. We're kind of limiting the black wall. I think that's the message that White's making here. So I don't believe in P9 either. Or, I don't not believe in it, but I don't think it's optimal. I think White's whole idea is that Black made a wall, so my smaller group is actually working against your wall. So overall, my plan isn't inefficient. So, yeah, what Black did next, I wasn't sure I agreed with it. But the computer doesn't mind it. Black played 05 and N5. So it's just cutting the group. He's like saying, no, this group is not something limiting my Moyo, this is enabling it because you're gonna get weak in here. So, yeah. And White Hanes, Black cuts. And yeah, okay. The next move I also like from White. This is, in my opinion, a very interesting move. White connected P4. So, I think when Black cuts in this type of situation, most players would kind of be salivating to, like, Atari and go down and would start, reading this stuff. And I think that what White was worried about was, well, Black could wedge here, and that fixes Black's cutting point and creates 2 cutting points in my shape. So that it doesn't not make sense to connect this way. Now, what this could have led to is that after black connects and white cuts, well, not black connect, black extends and white cuts, then white's gonna get a fully connected group of stones. But the only way white's gonna do that is by playing a sort of dame move, I think. So that's not super fun. On the other hand, how does black fix this shape? I guess black could cut first, but then black's shape really, really, really sucks. Yeah, black's shapes are really sad here because this is a problem and this is a problem. So maybe this is what white was going for. Now white probably fights. Triangles for everybody. Yeah, but I dislike this for black actually. So, you know, black, maybe, what would black do here? It's kind of hard to fix the shape. Maybe this move. And then white might even like extend and black can sacrifice or something. I don't know. Is this an idea? Maybe. So I think this was what white was going for. I connect everything strongly. Or if you play 07 and continue the facade of attacking these guys, then I take L4 and I've clearly profited on the lower side. And this is what happened. So I like this for white in the sense that these guys are kind of light, kind of flexible. But on the lower side, white has clearly made a huge gain, right? Like, this is just very nice. So I kind of like this for white, and also the computer does. I think this idea of blacks wasn't optimal, if I remember correctly. Though I might not remember correctly. And I don't know. I enjoyed this dynamic for white, where it's really not clear how black attacks this, but we'll see how it goes. M10 makes sense. You kind of have to do something to the group once you've done this much. And yeah, P13 I like. These stones don't matter, right? Like, they're not doing anything anymore. Their purpose has been served. So as long as white can establish a flexible group inside black's area, it doesn't really matter which flexible group inside black's area. So, you know, black can theoretically cut, but we don't care about that, right? This would just be... Even a sacrifice as simple as this one would probably favor white. So, you know, black's not profiting enough off of this. And here, I was a bit surprised at what black did. I don't... You know, I was reviewing this game with a friend, and I was thinking, well, black's approach to attacking this white group was really heavy-handed. Like, Chochikunu was really heavy-handed here. Like, I don't like what he did at all. But, I mean, they're much better players than me. Maybe the computer will say what he's doing is fine. Then I checked the computer, and the computer said that what black did wasn't fine. So I guess I was slightly justified. So black peeped N13. That's an important way of thinking, good to write up or memorize. You may not need to live with all your stones, just having a living group can be enough when invading. Yeah, when you invade, you just put a bunch of stones inside the moyo, and if some of them die, that isn't the point. Like, you can die with some of the stones in your opponent's area, and often dying with some stones facilitates the living of other stones. So yes, to add to Auntie's thought, I agree with that, yeah. But anyway, black peeped N13, and what I dislike about N13 a lot is that, of course, if white answers with P12 or something, then it's great, because white's shape is, you know, white's eye shape is ruined, and white's group is heavier. So if white connects or something, which is probably what black wanted, then it's great. I agree, you know? Like, you play here, white has no eye shape, and you keep attacking. But white's never, ever, ever caring about these stones. Like, white isn't going to spend a move to connect. So, white played P15, which I agree with, and if black cuts, which is what black did, white doesn't care. You know, so this formation isn't solid for black. White can definitely still fight with it. So black still has no certain profit and has given up a lot of profit on the top side for it. So I want to be fair to the players. They're playing on long time settings, at least 8 hours main time with 1 minute Byoyomi. Maybe it was even more back then. And they're much stronger than I am. So, you know, sometimes when you do stuff that looks like it doesn't fit the position. Maybe Chochi-kun just thought he read it, and he thought that this aji that White's group has is not enough. So he might have thought, well, this is essentially captured, and this group will still have to like connect on the second line or something. So that's reasonable. The computer agrees with my impression. So yeah, I don't know. If I were black, maybe the peep is okay, but then I wouldn't give up p16. I would, play this way, and after White jumps, I would play here. But then, I mean, then White's gonna make a living group. So, maybe a move I would be tempted to play here is probably, maybe, it's hard to play a move. I don't want to play something like this because it's gonna get, White has so much aji he can use against this. So, what's the feeling here? You play here anyway and just endure it? Like, eventually White's gonna attach here and get Sente moves and stuff. But I guess you have to bear it. L17. L17... I'm not a fan of L17. White's gonna live inside and then... Like, maybe White's just gonna jump down and... Maybe even shoulder hit to ask you if you want to add another move to the top side. And then, if White lives, then it's kind of hard to see what Black's profiting off of. It's okay, L17's okay. It's kind of hard for Black to find a move. So, maybe R13, but R13 feels bad. I don't quite know what I would do here. I'm not a fan of N13, so... And, in this position, I thought White's doing amazing. Like, really amazing. And the computer agrees. So, it's up, like, White's up a lot of points. It's something like 10 or something like that. It's surprising. Of course, with 7.5 Komi. I didn't adjust the Komi, so... And now, now we get to talk about how this group is still going to be... reinstated, Ah, what is that? R15? R15's normal. Yeah, the diagonal is just good. Like, if you play this move, then White's gonna play here and you're gonna cry. Later. Like, this shape is really, really problematic for Black in the future. So, I think the diagonal... The diagonal's the right move. But in my opinion, when you're playing the diagonal, you need to understand that the reason that the diagonal is good is that you shouldn't have let this happen locally. So, okay. And I think at this point, I thought White's doing really nice. So even if White just does something like connect, and Black has to spend another move, vague feeling of something already having gone wrong. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Black's busted here. So, even if White just connects, let's say White doesn't try to fight, because of course White has many strong fighting options here, like this, and you get to the stones, and then, Black's toast. So, even if White just plays M18, and Black has to spend a move fixing this, I think White's much better already. Okay, maybe not much better, because you have less Komi, but better. And then Chochiko never made a Moyo again. yeah, sort of. So, even if White doesn't press for something, just the fact that Black needs to add another move to capture these random stones in the center is enough for White. I mean, White's doing really nicely. And I think the strongest way White can play is maybe something like L12. And... if White's really brave, you can pull out these stones. Do you Atari? No, I guess you jump. And then say that this is alive, and this is alive, and Black's down many, many, many points. That's what the computer does. So what the computer does, this was very interesting. White plays M15, and forces Black to make White play the push. So Black kind of has to find a way to get out, and then White uses this as an excuse to get out, and then apparently both of these groups are more than fine, and then Black has nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. So, I mean, this makes sense, because White has a lot of resources to make this group live. because connection at A, you have potentially the clamp at B. It's got a lot of space to maneuver. And that's probably the strongest way to play. What White did in the game, I think, was a misread. So I think White misread somewhere, Shuko. And something I've heard about Shuko is that he was kind of infamous for reading blunders, which you see in some of his games. We're not going to look at many of those because I'm showing you games he won, but in some of the games he lost, he would lose in spectacular fashion, unfortunately. And I think this may have been one of the times. I think White attached M13, then M15 because he thought he's killing Black. I'm pretty sure. So at this point, White played M16, and I think that there was some idea that these stones can't live. Which doesn't look unreasonable on the face of it. After Black cuts, and we just connect here, it looks quite scary for Black, I would say. I don't think it's at all clear who's going to survive. And it's really complicated reading, to be quite honest. I mean, what is this? So, Black can go this way. And then there's some Ko, but a Ko should favor White, most probably. So, just because it's inside Black's Moyo, and White's gonna take first. So, and if Black tries to do something like this, where you make some liberties for your group, and then try to, like, enclose White's stones, this doesn't look very promising either, because these stones have a liberty problem. So, I still don't quite see what's going to go wrong if you just connect here. Even if Black plays something a little bit more flexible, like this move or something, I don't see a move that makes this fine for Black. So somewhere along the lines, White misread, because in the game, White played M17. Now, I'm not quite sure if there's something I don't see here, or if this is just fine for White and Shuko misread something. I guess I'm misreading something, but White ended up deciding to play M17. And then if we go back, this is probably not ideal. We would rather have played M17 or M18 earlier, while forcing Black to add another move, then make our group bigger and heavier and then sacrificing it. So this wasn't ideal from White's side. Like I said, the cleanest way to fight is we play M15 and we force Black to play here. And that this is an amazing exchange for White, because Black's shape is, split, right? These guys are split, and Black's gonna have to push out and help White escape, so this would have been the nicest way to play, probably. Maybe Shuko was too happy? I don't know. Maybe. So, this was a surprising moment. The thing is, White is still better. White's still better here. So, in the game, Black added another move. Oh, yeah, that probably makes sense. Yeah, that probably makes sense, and the main reason it makes sense is, say you don't add another move. Then this comes with a tempo. It's going to be Sente, and then White creates another group here, which is potentially a problem. So, in the end, everyone defended solidly. And I'm not sure. I think White could have crushed Black more. So I think White could have done much more, potentially. I'm not sure because I didn't read everything. Nor can I read everything. These guys have more time and read better than I can. But I had the impression White could do more. With that said, White's still better. So, White got points on the top side. White, destroyed Black's corner. Black did get a nice shape and some captured stones on the outside. But, this already started with White getting profit. So in general, it's still a pleasant game for White. And what I kind of enjoyed about this position in general was how lightly White treated these center stones. I mean, this was really elegant. So even though White had to let the stones go, or White chose to let the stones go, White's still better. And to me, that's a testament to that this was fundamentally a very sound invasion plan from White. Even if the group dies, that isn't the problem, because you lived somewhere else. So it was a very smooth invasion, even if it didn't Even if black didn't get crushed, white's still better. So, yeah. On a side note, is f3 better than d3? I think it would be. Actually, here, the reason I like f3 is that this stone can sort of be considered as a target, potentially. And I know that's crazy considering a cornerstone a target, but white's really thick. Like, not really thick, but white's actually thicker in this area than black is. So if we play something like the attachment, I get the impression that maybe black's group is going to be happy. Or happier than it could be. Or such is my impression. So when we play a move like f3, that indirectly pressures black's group more. Maybe that's not true. But that's my impression as to why f3 might be better. Not that d3 is bad. But... I mean, already when black plays e2, f2, that's... I don't know, I don't mind this for white at all. And yeah, after black j3, what's white's next move? I was thinking about this, and I couldn't find like an obvious move to answer this invasion. I couldn't even find a good tenuki. I mean, I don't see what else to do on the board, and white just took at m3, which is quite a funny move. So I guess if you do anything, this aji, I don't think it exists yet. Does it exist yet? If black goes down? It might exist. I didn't think it would, but it might. You'd probably have to extend here first, and then you'd have to jump, I suppose. Which doesn't look clean-cut at all for black, far from it. But, feeling is d3. Okay, yeah, maybe. Talking about f3 or d3 for context. L7 wins. L7? L7 white captures, no? After white p2. Does it? White just plays here. I mean, you get a squeeze, which might be okay, but I think wins is a strong word. So the point is, black doesn't have an immediate threat as far as I can tell, but white figured the best way I can fight in this area is by not handicapping myself first. Like, I make the shape strong, and then I do something with it. So this is, again, a very Shuko move. I also don't see what else you do in this area. I don't see a move. So in a sense, I agree with the move. I like it. So we take. And yeah, okay, we get into d3 to make a group. Black tried to use this thickness by destabilizing white's group on the left side. But white was quite cautious here. I think Shuko just made shape with everything. And the groups are strong. And I think there was a nice finishing touch here. So we play h2. So everything's alive. And now b6, which asks black, do you want the endgame or the strength? And black actually took... Yeah, black took the strength. And then white plays h8. And h8 was a really nice move, I think, because it puts a lot of pressure on these guys indirectly. And, you know, if this stone somehow dies passively, then white's B group is never getting in trouble in the endgame. Like, you don't have to worry about making eyes with it. c12 instead of e12. c12 instead of e12 can be a plus. Yeah. This I was talking about this with my friend at the time, and I was wondering, well, if I were white, I would just fix without doing anything because I don't want to destroy the aji. So I'm not sure if cutting c12 immediately does anything. Because you don't have time to play here. Black will probably play this way, I think. But then you do get this. I mean, I don't know. I don't like this way of playing either. Just because you're sort of handicapping this stone. It's harder to do stuff with that stone than before. But that's actually, you know, it's a small detail, but that's also why I don't like playing e12 and then later Shuko also exchanged e13 for e14 for d14. I'm not a fan of that because it makes it harder to cake here later. So I'm not sure I would have cut, but I don't like that the Aji was wasted, or like that wasn't used. I guess White just wanted stability for his group on the outside, I suppose. But somehow there's a sense that White could have done more. I'm not sure about that. Yeah. So here, anyway, but I did like what White did here. So h8 is a nice move where Black's gonna kind of have to go somewhere. And whichever way Black goes, this stone is gonna die passively, unless Black fights. And I kind of enjoy that White A, B, C, which were all very solid slow moves, are gonna turn out to be very powerful now. So yeah, this is a funny moment. The AI move is okay, so White wants to connect A and B, and also wants to prevent Black from connecting with C. So the AI move is here. Which is nice. White in the game played an extension, which works as well, actually. So I don't know why the computer prefers the empty triangle. But this still works for White because you're gonna cut with f4 next. And yeah, this Han is nice because Black either curls into an empty triangle or does what he did in the game, which is we make a strong shape in the center, but then we allow this cut. So then Black just got captured. These four guys are captured. And okay, White lost Sente for it. And, you know, Black got some compensation in the middle, but these stones were enough for White to just have a territorial lead. So, I mean, they played out an endgame, I guess. Black was... You know, Black, I think, was behind by maybe 3 points or so, I counted, when Black resigned. And yeah, this is where Black resigned. And I don't know, so there's two things I really enjoyed about this game, which is how, in my opinion, White outclassed Black in the top right Moyo discussion, to the point where White didn't even land the knockout blow. I think White, you know, either misread something or got a bit relaxed here. But White didn't land the knockout blow, and White was still better, clearly better, in my opinion. White's invasion was still a success. So that's how profitable this invasion was for White. And I think that this kind of idea that Black plays A and tries to make the group heavy, and White just didn't care. White just let the tail go because he knows the tail will be useful in some way later. This was very nice, in my opinion. And the other thing I liked later is how, you know, White played some moves that are quite solid, a little bit slow even, like this idea of exchanging B and C, this idea of eventually played A, eventually played M3, and that ended up materializing in these stones dying, little by little. So, I noticed many shoulder hits in Fujisawa games and commentaries. Yeah, shoulder hits. I think Shuko is the type of player that might occasionally shoulder hit on the 5th line before it was cool. So, but yeah, this was an enjoyable game. Though in my opinion, it's not quite as enjoyable as the next ones, I guess. So, yeah, he did it before it went mainstream, yes. Yeah, I think I can think of a couple of games where this type of idea was employed by him, so... Okay, let's move on to the next game. The next game was also against Chochi-kun. And it's the next game in the same series. So, yeah. Oh, don't you always confuse Shuko and Shuho? I don't. Fujisawa Hideyuki knows how to make so bad shape that the opponent overcommits to kill it. Yeah, it's baiting. It's called baiting. Didn't he write the book on reducing territorial frameworks? That I didn't know about. Sounds interesting. So, okay, this game is... Shuko took Black against Chochi-kun in this same series. You know, Chochi-kun was already quite the formidable player. He made it to Kisei Challenger, and he did eventually even win this series, which was pretty good. But I'm ready to bet it was ghostwritten. Oh. This game, in my opinion, this game, as well as one of the next ones that I have on the list, is really, 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 really good at showing how strong shape can be useful even if it's not in the context of influence. Like, people like influence when it's working together. Like, when you have a wall and you have another wall and you're building something with that wall. So, like, something like this. Oh, okay, let's play this. People don't mind this as black because they're like, okay, this is where I'm building. You know? This is where I'm building. So it's very clear. But people don't like don't like thickness in a context where they're not quite sure how to use it. And in my opinion, one of the great things about Shuko's games is that he has thickness here, he has a thick shape here, this shape is strong. So what? Like, they're not building anything. And then 100 moves later, they all work together somehow. Like, they always become useful, which is really interesting to me. I have a 5-book series of Fujisawa bashing other people's moves. Wow. Nice. So, yeah, Shuko is black here. And yeah, F7 is a move that for a long time I only knew about B. But since I saw F7 on AI, I saw it on AI first on in Shuko's games, I prefer it. Because you have the shoulder hit next, which is very nice. Why do you think it's ghostwritten? I think it was quite common for Japanese professionals' books to be ghostwritten at the time. Like, it's more like someone wants to write a book, and they basically pay a top professional to have their name on it, let's say. So... And okay, this is a really interesting moment. So black has this sort of framework on the lower right, and Chochikun invades. Well, invades, puts a stone there, and white plays n4, and the idea of n4 is this area on the lower side is really small. How about I over-concentrate you there, you know, and I connect all my stones, right? And Shuko is like, fine. Fine. And white takes center. So white connected all his stones. It's pretty strong. And all that black got was 2 Ponukis on the third line like this, in Gote. And, you know, I think that white should probably be happy here. Like, I think that this is objectively quite fine for white. But black is very thick, right? So that's the thing about black's position. He's... you know, these 2 Ponukis, it's not really clear how they're going to be used because they're not building anything. They're like on the second and third line, but they're going to matter later. They're going to matter a lot later. Like, you'll be surprised how much they matter. So just hang on to that. I would say that another thing that is important to observe in this game, and if you want, you can keep track, how many times black took Senta this game. Or rather, well, that will be easier to count than how many times black took Gote. So, yeah, white got to Tanuki once. White got to Tanuki again. And, okay, black Tanuki'd here. And, yeah, after white pushes, I think that Shuko was already thinking about disconnecting A and B, and also about how, like, from a shape perspective, this is annoying for black because these stones are not really doing anything. And therefore the solution is we hane. Oh, like this. L17 feels so wrong to me here. L17's fine. I mean, what else do you do? You could invade Sansan or approach, which is okay. I think probably the reason L17 was played was that black was considering that this type of invasion is annoying, so you want to add a stone so that it's less annoying. which is not unfair. I think in modern times people would approach or play Sansan, but I don't think L17 is a bad move. So, okay. And, yeah, Black Hannes, which allows the cut. We exchange, and then Black attaches J8, which is a nice move because if White goes out, then this fight maybe is playable for White, but notice that White's group here got severely weakened. So, once Black plays such a jump, it's not clear if White's in more trouble than Black is. So I think that this is what Black was going for. Maybe you actually want to fix. You want to prevent this attachment because that's annoying. So maybe it's more like... How do you play it? Do you just extend? Maybe you just extend. And then you say White has 2 problems. Yeah, maybe that's fair, because Black doesn't have any problems. Or not as many anyway. So that was the idea, and Chochikun answered. Black again got a very thick shape. Look at this, right? A, B, very thick shapes. So they're not doing anything, right? They're not, achieving something. And White Tanukis again. C16 is a bit of an older style move. I think it was more popular back in the day. Also, Shuko was the type of player that popularized such moves. I think in this specific case, White was thinking, well, what is the most efficient way I can keep the left side? If I play something like this, well, then maybe the invasion is easier. So this was White's way of closing off the left side. I don't think this move is necessarily efficient from a shape perspective, so I wouldn't do it. I would play here, and if Black invades, I don't care. I will still make something on the side even if Black invades. That's what I would do. But this is actually a very Shuko-like move from Chochikun. So, yeah. F16. And in my opinion, Black did a good job in this sequence. So we're going to look quickly through this sequence. Black did a really good job of pointing out what the price of such a move is. Let's say it's the burden of keeping a territory. So White said, well, here I want to keep this side of the board, and hopefully the corner. And what Black does throughout this sequence is that you keep asking White, well, do you really want to keep it? Black plays here. Do you really want to keep the corner and take this in Gote? And White's like, no. So White already lost some profit. And then again, moves like this ask White, do you really want to keep it? And eventually White says yes. Black's like, do you really want to keep it? And eventually what happens is that in the endgame, Black's going to do this to you anyway. Black's going to do this to you anyway. So White kept 15 points. And now Black has this monster group that is really thick, really well connected, and really strong. So from a shape perspective, Black is completely outclassing White, in my opinion. You can kind of see that Cho is getting psyched out by Shuko. Yeah, this move C16 is a bit overly cautious, I think. So I like what Black did here because that's the problem with moves such as C16, which are being very territorial in a way. You have to keep the territory if you want to justify your point, and then you're going to pay stuff. And I don't think many people would be that happy with Black's position here because Black didn't necessarily get anything tangible. But Black's really strong shapes are going to become important very soon. So, you see this group is a monster, like I said. And this Ponuki shape is a monster. And little by little, these monsters are going to come together. So, doesn't the C16 thing kind of D16 look wrong? Yeah, exactly. I don't disagree. So that's why I don't think that shape is very good. And I especially dislike that White played defensively around this. So, in my opinion, the main asset... So, when Shuko plays a move like C16, which he does often, A and B, the next game we're going to look at, Shuko actually did this. He played this corner enclosure. But in my opinion, the whole point of this corner enclosure, if you do play it, is that you say, well, it's a little bit inefficient, but it's very thick, it's very strong, and I'm gonna make you suffer. Like, I'm gonna use this as a way to fight you. And what White did throughout this sequence is that he's like, I make an iron pillar, and I'm gonna spend the rest of my time defending 15 points. You know? That's what White did. So it's not just that it's inefficient from a shape perspective, it's that I think that the premise is not entirely correct. And maybe it's, you know, the nerves getting to Chochi-kun. It's an important title match, he's down to 0. He kind of got beaten somewhat badly in the last 2 games. So, you know, maybe something to do with that. White invades R17. White wants the cash. And White did successfully invade. Notice that White took Sente again, right? White again took Sente to invade. So there's like, how many times did White take Sente? White took Sente on the lower side. White took Sente in the center. White took Sente on the left side. White kept taking Sente, but Black's shapes kept getting thick, right? And now you can see these guys are really thick as well, because A and B got added. And now Black has Sente, and these 3 White groups are going to start suffering. And this is what I really enjoyed about this game. So Black never made a moyo. Black never made a tangible thickness to build points with. Black just made strong shapes, little by little, and then they turned into something amazing. So you know, from now on, Black's messaging is gonna be, you're never, ever, ever connecting your stones. Like, I'm not gonna let you connect your stones, because then they're gonna be safe. So and I think it was here. Yeah, I think it was here that I think that White tried to put a little bit of pressure on Black's stones, and Black said, fine, we'll trade. And there's a lot of reading involved here, but Black is essentially trying to kill White's center route now. Which is not entirely possible yet. Not quite yet, so. Yeah, so this is the interesting moment, in my opinion. Yes, here. So what Black did so far was he used his thickness to just pierce through White's stones, and now you're trying to put pressure. And as far as I can tell, White will still most likely live in this position by doing something like this. So Black has to connect, right, locally. And, you know, then after White plays a move like this jump, and maybe, what's the next move? Maybe here. It's kind of hard to believe that this White group will die. So it just has many resources still. Once you get this Atari and this connection, which forces Black to connect, then these guys are cut. So maybe the shape move is like here or something. And you're already maybe threatening to peep here and cut the stones, etc. Black is locally in trouble. So Black can't kill yet. The reason that I don't think White, you know, the reason that White didn't live, I think, is that White was worried about this move now. So Black can cut with L14, this Atari doesn't matter. And then A and B are cut. So I'm guessing that the players thought that White's gonna die with something here. Most likely with these guys. I'm not sure these guys are gonna make I-shape easily. So, especially, and that was actually, by the way, that was the purpose of these exchanges by Black. Notice that after these exchanges have been made, A is Black's Sente, which is very sneaky. Very sneaky. But that's the purpose, I think. And I think the whole idea is that after this sequence happens, the players probably read that White dies somewhere. I'm guessing on the right side. So this is Sente, and then you go all caveman on your opponent and you kill something, I guess. Maybe here next. Yeah, this move looks good. And if you don't like that, then this looks like it could easily become a Ko locally. Oh wait, no, this one will live. This one will live. So it's more about the right side. Black's got to kill the right side now. And there's a lot of reading involved. I think it's quite intuitive that this could become a dead group. So I think that that's what was going through the player's mind. And that's why White didn't spend a move to live. White actually played A, which connects his stones and is basically killing Black's top side. But then, you know, Black plays this really solid move, trades for White's group, and at the end of this, White played some exchanges, which didn't really work. And at the end of it, we have a group trade. Like this, you know, kind of spectacular group trade. White's group was much bigger. So this is obviously a favorable trade to Black, even though White ended up capturing these stones on the tail end of it. I think in hard territory, Black definitely profited here. And I just found this fantastic. I mean, when I looked at this game, I was like, wow. Like, I mean, it's a very fantastic game in the sense that it's, you know, it's kind of spectacular. But I really want to stop and appreciate how the build, it didn't just happen. Like, Black's been not preparing this. Black hasn't been preparing to kill a group for the whole game. But Black has been making stronger shape after stronger shape after stronger shape after stronger shape all game, and eventually it came together to do something awesome. And for me, this is a particularly graphic representation of how strong shapes are valuable, even if they're not doing something tangible. So White was the more territorial player. White played the looser shapes, and in the long term, White kind of got punished. And I just really enjoyed, the part I really enjoyed of this game, like it was amazing for me, was how seamlessly Black, you know, just cut through White's stones and made them a problem. So how all of Black's better shapes, thicker shapes, turned into a huge problem for White. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. So this is one of my favorite games of Shuko's. I thought this was really nice. Now, unfortunately, Shuko did lose this title match. So this was game 3. It's a best of 7. Shuko was up 3-0. And after getting kind of rolled in games 2 and 3, Chochi-kun won 4 games in a row, which is nice. You know, not bad, not bad. So Chochi-kun wasn't bad at the time either. And I think unfortunately, Shuko never qualified to play in the finals of the Kisei again, though he did play in some other title matches. Like I mentioned, he won the Oza like already in the 90s when he was in his 60s, so this wasn't the end of his career by any means. So yeah, very nice game. This is one of my favorite games from Shuko. Like when I saw it, I think I first replayed it like a month ago, and I messaged the NGD teachers Discord channel. I was like, this game's amazing. Check out this game, it's crazy. So I really enjoyed it. So, and not just because of the spectacular killing. I just thought it was a great game. Like how the stones worked together for Black was just amazing. I loved it. So yeah. We're already quite deep into lecture time. There were 2 more games I wanted to show. They're short games. So these games are shorter and they're more like spectacular rather than informative. In my opinion, this is one of the most instructive professional games I've ever replayed in my life. But the next 2 are like a little bit less informative, but spectacular. So I guess that they're some of Shuko's more interesting wins. I was going through these games from 10 years ago. I remember seeing similar things back then. Steph is probably experiencing a deja vu here. I see. I guess, yeah. But I don't know, like, something else I've been learning. So, in my games, I think I've grown a much larger appreciation for shape. Regardless of Moyo, I've always been a Moyo player, but instead of, like, building Moyos, I've been increasingly building strong shape. And one of the people that's taught me that has been Antti, because when we play teaching games, Antti just clearly has a better shape sense than I do, and just destroys me that way. So, like, the lesson I've been learning recently is that stone efficiency and strong shapes are much more important than one would give them credit for. Like, for example, it's more important than direction of play. You consider direction of play once your shapes are fine. So, yeah. Okay. Next game. So these games are really, really short. So these games are 100 move games where Shuko runs over the opponent. And this one is against no less than Kato Masao. So this is the 1978 Kisei title match. Shuko won the 1977, which was the first title match. And this game, so this, another thing I liked about this game was that Shuko did to Kato Masao what Kato Masao is supposed to do to other people. So remember how in the first game we said that about Chochi-kun? So Shuko didn't play one style, in my opinion. He was a very, very flexible player. This game is very famous. I think this, in my opinion, it's not Shuko's best games, but it's certainly the most famous. Or it's very likely to be the most famous. I don't think it deserves to be the most famous, but it's pretty good. The massacre is the right word for it. So Shuko is black. Keep in mind he's playing Kato the Killer Masao, and see what happens. So first of all, it looks like Kato Masao is black. Kato would always play the High Chinese opening, as far as I know, and this is a slight what was the famous move again? Well, there's I think the famous move was the descent to R9, right? Shuko was also nicknamed. Yes, this is the killer versus the monster. So yeah, the game lived up to the name for sure. So this was a slightly older Joseki. I think this Joseki is considered defunct. Like, from a shape perspective, you would much rather cut the other way, because later you have this type of sente move. You have slightly better endgame, and when you push, this type of hane becomes sente. So these days people think, well, if you're going to take the ponuki, you should take it the other way. But before, both were considered okay. So yeah. J3, yeah, this was an interesting moment also. So Kato Masao invaded with L3, which is interesting. And I kind of like what Black did. So we gave a very limited amount of territory. It's not limited, it is big. But we take sente. And though, to be honest, judging by some of Shuko's games, I wouldn't be surprised if he played something like this next. And I don't even think it's that bad of a move, but in this game, Shuko is playing full moyo, so he's playing very quickly. We shoulder hit, we take senten, tengen. So we see this kind of moyo structure, and I mean, I'm quite sure that Alpha Zero would have a field day invading this moyo. Yeah, I mean, Alpha Zero would be having so much fun in here. And Kato Masao also wanted to have some fun in this moyo, R7. And this is the beginning of the massacre. Move 57 seems to have been the move, but I don't have the time record here. Oh, okay. I thought the move, quote unquote, was actually R9. So Black plays R9. I seem to remember Shuko read it for an hour, maybe just reading the kill out. Yeah, the reading in this game was crazy. I can't really understand it because I didn't spend that much time with the game, and I don't read as well as these guys. So, but this is the first move that is kind of interesting. We're playing a very solid, thick iron pillar, but it's telling white you're gonna suffer. I don't think black's trying to kill yet, but you're definitely trying to make white suffer. And if I were white, I would be a little bit concerned about making life for my group after something like black here. So, I certainly understand that, even though it's maybe not the most efficient shape, let's say in the long term you're going to make white make inefficient shapes because white's going to be spending all his time making life. So, instead of points. So, this is okay so far, even if you don't kill. K8's a weird move. The next two moves by Kato, I don't really understand them. Because you're sort of making it harder for yourself to live inside later, which is fine if you don't intend to live inside. But then Kato tried to live inside anyway. So in my opinion, this is slightly incongruous in terms of move order. If you're gonna do something on the outside, it should have been something that black can't answer to make it harder for you to live. So maybe is something, I don't know if I didn't sleep enough, but something like this attachment feels like a move. If you don't want to live with the group, you might as well use it. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. So like the idea is that black still has a cutting point, so these stones are going to be useful at some point. Unless black plays it like really passively and just gives you a group on the outside. I don't know, some idea. I thought what white did was a bit weird, but maybe white thought he can live anyway, so this is, like, then the exchanges will become good. I don't quite know. And this is where it gets really brutal. Oh, he spent an hour reading out the kill. Okay. Is the dropdown really that unusual? I thought it was standard shape to handle invasions like this. Just take the profit on one side and keep the invasion unsettled enough to chase. Maybe, yes. I mean, I would be reluctant to play an Iron Pillar like that, but when the opponent's invading, it's considered that the inefficient shape might be worth it because of the ice base you deprive your opponent of. So maybe, yes. And, you know, back to the game, in this position, I wouldn't necessarily say that black is worse. Even if you don't kill. I don't think that black is necessarily worse if you Tenuki or something, like you play here. You know, white's invasion was successful, obviously, but, you know, black has lots of territory on the lower side he can make. I mean, you kind of have to play M2 for it. But you're thick, right? This thickness, you know, the last game showed that all of this thickness will kind of be useful at some point in various ways. So black, you know, I wouldn't mind this position as black, even if you just Tenuki and don't try to kill. I would Tenuki if I didn't try to kill. But black's next move is already a little bit of an all-in attempt. S7 looks like a move. S7 looks like a move. Apparently, the players read that white isn't locally alive anyway, so black's move is much more brutal. Black played Q8. And this is already... we're not making an efficient shape. If white lived with this group, you know, white's going to be escaping with this move. That's the idea. If white lives with this, I don't think that this is efficient for black. So black, in my opinion, this is already the moment where we're all-inning. And I wouldn't have done this. I would have Tenuki'd, I would have maybe played here, which is a way to attack that doesn't necessarily, you know, make life less profitable. So I think probably I would just Tenuki. And I don't think black even has a worse position. But black looked at these shapes and apparently read for an hour and was like, okay, I read it out, it's dead. And something that does feature in some of Shuko's games is that his calculation ability was crazy. Like, his calculation was amazingly accurate in some games. So, of course, he had much more time than most of us do in our tournament games, but in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily make it less impressive. So white tried to attach out. So far, it looks kind of natural. And this part is the part that gets kind of crazy. It looks suspicious. Yes, it looks suspicious. And I wouldn't have done this as black because you have to be... I mean, if you don't kill, you're already making a deficit. You know? So, like, this... I don't mind what black did up until now, because you don't need to kill to do well. But after this move, you're maybe not going to be losing, but you're not going to be better if you don't kill. So it's a risky move. So... Shuko's style is like Blastoise. I wish I understood the reference. Probably something about Pokemon or something. Please don't bash me if I'm wrong. Please, please, please. I don't know anything. I'm an innocent Go player. So, black played really, really brutal here. And I mean, this shape has so many holes. I mean, if you play here, as white, if you play L9, and black cannot cut. Because white plays this way, and I think white is actually... Well, okay. Black can play this way, and sort of save the stones, but then that creates so many issues for these stones on the outside. I mean, the whole shape is crumbling. And what black did here was kind of spectacular, given so many holes exist. So yeah, so for example here, if black connects, which does locally kill, then black's gonna run into some issues if you play it this way, potentially. So I think, black... You told me Shuko played thick. Well, he does. I mean, these shapes are pretty thick. I mean, also, in general, his shapes were very, very strong. Like I said, one of the few players that sacrifices a little bit of efficiency for just pure thickness sometimes. But yeah. This is insane. I mean, I'm not even sure it works. I'm guessing a computer thinks that white's in trouble. The shape is very thick because white's dead inside. Yeah, exactly. And, so apparently the players read that if black connects P11, like I showed in a brief variation, this can get kind of scary for black because white's threatening this ladder, and maybe black has a way to deal with it. Maybe something like this, but I don't know. Black read that this extension was fine, which is scary because you allow white to capture this stone, but that shouldn't matter. So white attaches, and black was like, oh no, now white's gonna play this type of attachment, and I'm gonna potentially get in trouble. Remember that A is white's sent to live. So black's next move is, I think, the most spectacular move. He jumps down, which gives up this stone, which still doesn't matter, which lets white go down. And I mean, somehow black read out that this group wins against this group. Somehow. So... And he was right, too. I mean, maybe the computer disagrees, but Kato didn't disagree. So eventually what happened is that I think this shape in itself should be a Seki, which is fine for black, because if it's Seki, if A and B are Seki, then C is dead, right? So after which A is dead anyway. And the last thing that Kato tried, which was very interesting, was he played from the outside and tried to threaten to kill either A or B, but apparently Shuko just read everything out. And as far as I can tell, when white resigned, which is here, this shape should end in Seki. This shape ends in Seki, and the really important thing is that while we're making the Seki, black makes 2 local eyes. White can never come back and take the eyes, because then white has fewer liberties. So black organically lives by playing out a Seki, which means that white's dead here, which means that white's dead here. And this game is very spectacular. I don't think it's as informative as the other game. So his first game with Chochi-kun was, in my opinion, much more instructive. Like, that game's amazing. But this one's really spectacular. And I think it really shows the degree of reading that these guys can go to. And also the level of confidence with such a move. So Shuko was the type of player that could play unconventional stuff and do some really crazy stuff. It's a bloody mess, I love it, yeah. Why is D dead? Oh, the reason D is dead is that this is a Seki, right? Between the two groups, it's a Seki, between A and B. But this white group on the right side is locally dead. It doesn't have 2 eyes, right? Like, even if it were white's turn, black's gonna kill. So then this guy is gonna die, and after A dies, that means B is gonna get an extra liberty, right? Because it's gonna get connected, which means that this guy is dead. So everything's dead. White has more dead stones than living stones here, probably on this board. So yeah, this game is... Yeah, I don't know. I just... One thing I did enjoy about this game is that Kato Masao has games like this against people. You know, in title matches, against really strong players. And let's say it's really interesting to watch Shuko beating someone the way that they usually beat people. And Shuko kind of is good at this because I think he could play a lot of different ways, because he was a player that, in my opinion, played off of strong shapes. He didn't necessarily play Moyo. He didn't necessarily do. What I appreciate is there's a decided appreciation for strong shapes throughout the game, and not for a specific style. And I really enjoy that. Yeah. So there was another game. I do have to go, so unfortunately I can't show it. It's yeah. The last game that I wanted to check was another really spectacular game against Ring Kaiho. By the way, did you check with AI? Was White actually dead after Q8? I don't know. I didn't check with AI. I will say that the AI probably doesn't know. That's my guess. So AI's reading on low playouts is not that accurate, and I don't think it will be absolutely sure. I think its instinct will be that black is worse, but maybe as the fight progresses, it'll either find a big mistake that white made, or it will find that white was, it will find that white was dead in the first place. I won't really comment on it because, I have to go, but I will show this game very quickly. This game is, I want to talk about it because it's sort of related to the AI. If you were watching my stream maybe a month or two ago, I did show this game on my stream. And Shuko is white here. And the really crazy thing about this game is that white played this random slow move at c16. So Shuko did this. I remember how when Shochikun played it, it was like a defensive move where you're trying to protect your territory. Shuko didn't play this as a defensive move to protect your territory. So we can see what happened in a very little bit. So black invades at f17, and, black's arguing you left a hole here, let's exploit it. And white's arguing I didn't leave a hole here, and that's the discussion that they had. And Shuko plays here, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. And, apparently black's dying here. Now, the reason I wanted to mention this in relation to Siku's question is that the AI thinks that black is fine here. The AI thinks the game is 50-50. And what's more, it plays the right moves for black. Like, Rin Kaiho played the AI move, the AI move, the AI move. Like, I think every single move was either the AI move or, like, not bad. Like, it didn't think any move was, like, a mistake. However, the more it goes down this sequence, the more it realizes that black is dead. So my Karago didn't understand how dead black is here. At the moment that here, black resigned after 106 moves, Rin Kaiho 9P, who is also a legendary player, resigns in a title match after 106 moves. Shuko was kind of good. The AI, maybe here, still didn't understand how dead black is. It still thinks the game is 50-50. Here, it starts to realize. And here, if you give it, 10,000 playouts, it starts to say, okay, black resigns. So, in my opinion, this is a testament. In my opinion, this is just amazing how white used this slow shape. It is slow, right? It isn't efficient. But white understood how powerful it was and just, brought down the hammer on black in a really, really interesting way. So this was just crazy. And both players played well here. I mean, they did basically the computer recommendation all the way through. And this is just crazy because white is locally dead here, but white has a big eye. White dies only with a big eye. So it's going to be something like this. And if white dies with a big eye, white actually wins the Liberty race in this particular case. So it's just amazing. And this group is going to connect on the second line, so it's never ever worried about dying, and that's why black resigned. So yeah, just also an amazing game, which I would have loved to go over in more detail, but it's a good time to wrap up the lecture, unfortunately. But yeah. Okay, so the AI in the previous game, the AI thought that white should have sacrificed after Q8, and that actually makes sense because, black has invested this move, which isn't an efficient move from the shape perspective. Black has many moves in the local area, so if white just tenukis and leaves the Aji, right? I think it's quite obvious that these stones are not useless, right? These stones are absolutely not useless. They are still going to be used. Even if black eventually just plays a defensive move, then that's already a gain for white because black invested so many moves. I wonder whether Katago thinks, like, who black Katago thinks is better. I'm not sure. So, yeah, same idea as before. You just need a group. Exactly, Siku. I completely agree with that. So, the issue sometimes with moves like Q8 is that they're not efficient shape. So the fact that white dies with some stones is can be, in this case it isn't, black's better anyway, but like it is immaterial because black shapes are inefficient. So if you just make a group somewhere, your stones are more efficient than your opponents. Like here, white's gonna argue, well, I'm gonna play this attachment later, and I'm gonna get this exchange, and I'm gonna make a group here, and that's enough. Maybe that's the argument. So nevertheless, this was profitable enough that black can take the shape deficit. So yeah, anyway, very interesting game also. Yeah, thank you to everyone who watched. I'll wrap up the lecture here. It was a very fun one to prepare. I mean, yesterday, I've replayed quite a few Shuko games in the past, but in preparation for the lecture, like yesterday and the day before, I was looking at a lot of Fujisawa Shuko games to choose some of the nicest ones, and I learned a lot reviewing those games, and I also got to research a bit on the player, which was fun. So thank you to everyone who watched. It was a pleasure to do the lecture. Yes, see you guys, and yeah, I'll see you for other lectures. I'm sure other teachers will also lecture. Before I go, if any of you aren't part of the NGD, I suggest you go look up the NGD. We're a Go school, and stuff. But yeah, that's beside the point. Thank you to everyone who watched, and see you next time.